करे जी।
ॐ सदाशिवसमारम्भां शङ्कराचार्यमध्यमाम्
चार्यमध्यमाम्
अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्पराम्।
गुरुपरम्पराम्।
ॐ सहना भवतु सहनौ
सहनौ
भुनक्तु
भुनक्तु
सह
सह
वीर्यं कर्वावहै
वीर्यङ्करवावहै
तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। हरि ओम्. Okay, so we were on the 11th Karika of the Agam Prakaranam of Maandukya Upanishad. So we will chant that Karika. Please unmute yourself. Karya Karana Baddhav Tau
कार्यकारणबद्धौ तौ
Ishyete Vishwataijasau
विश्वेते विश्वतैजसौ
Prajnah Karanabandhastu
प्राज्ञः
प्राज्ञः
कारणबन्धस्तु
कारणबन्धस्तु
Tau Tau Turyena Siddhyataha.
द्वौ
द्वौ
तौ
तौ
तूर्येण सिद्ध्यतः।
Okay, so we are seeing in that verse that Vishwa, the first pada, is associated with ignorance and error. Ignorance meaning what? Ignorance of the nature as Paramatma, as Turyam. And as a result of that ignorance, what happens? An error arises. I mistake my identity as the finite Jivatma with finite attributes like birth, possession, suffering, death, etc. Right? So this particular Vishwa is associated with ignorance and error. Right? So ignorance we saw other names Karanam, Bijam, Nidra, Agrahanam, and the effect, the product, the error. We saw names like Karyab, Angura, Swapna, and Anyatha Grahanam. So these names we must remember. Then Visataijasa, the second pada, also associated with ignorance and error. Same problems as the Vishwa. Then we saw Prajna, the third pada, associated only with the ignorance. Because the mind is resolved, so there is no karak, there is no product, there is no error. So difference between Prajna and Vishwa and Taijasa is this, that Vishwa Taijasa associated with ignorance as well as the product, which is the error, and Prajna associated only with the ignorance and has no error. Okay, this much we saw in the last class. What about Turyam? So he says, Dau Tau Turyena Siddhyataha. In the Turyam, in that Paramatma, in Brahman, ignorance and error, dvau tau, both ignorance and error, na siddhyataha, are not present in Turye, in present in Turyam. So what is a Turyam? It's pure consciousness, not associated with ignorance or error. In fact, it is because of the Turyam, because of this pure unassociated consciousness, that the error as well as the consequences of the error are revealed. The ignorance is revealed as well as the consequence, the error, the karyam is revealed. Now, why do we say that Turyam is the revealer of both ignorance and error? So there are three reasons given over there. So one is that asangha. Consciousness, Turyam, is doesn't associate with anything. It is asangaha, like space, not associated with anything. Similarly, consciousness is all pervading, like space, but again, not contaminated with anything, including the ignorance and therefore including the error. So that is the first reason. Consciousness reveals, but is not touched by either ignorance or error. Then the second reason is because consciousness is paramarthika, a higher order of reality. Consciousness, Turyam, is paramarthika satyam, whereas both ajnanam and karyam, the ignorance as well as the error, they belong to the lower order of reality, which we call vyavaharika satyam. And what is the rule? That a higher order can never have a connection with a lower order. A higher order cannot be, higher order of reality cannot be polluted or contaminated by a lower order of reality. Just as the dream fire cannot burn the waker's body lying in the bed, or the dream waters cannot wet the waker's body lying on the bed, because the waker is of a higher order of reality, Vyavaharika Satyam, while the dream objects are of a lower order reality, which is called what? What is the dream order of reality called?
Pratibhasika.
Pratibhasika Satyam. Right? You must remember that we have three orders: Paramarthika, Vyavaharika, Pratibhasika. So in English, we call Paramarthika as absolute order of reality, Vyavaharika as the transactional order of reality or the objective order of reality, and Pratibhasika as the subjective order of reality. So these three comparisons we must always remember. There is a second reason that consciousness is Paramarthika Satyam, while ignorance and error both belong to Vyavaharika Satyam, lower order of reality, so there can be no connection at all. The third is a logic. Whatever reveals, the revealer can never be touched by what it reveals. The light illuminates my hand, but the dirt on my hand cannot contaminate the light. Similarly, the thorium, the consciousness, illumines both ignorance and error, but is not touched by either of them. So, in short, what Vishwa and Tajasa are associated with ignorance and error. Prajna is associated only with ignorance. But Turiam, the consciousness principle, Brahman, is associated with neither ignorance nor error. Okay, now in the tradition of Shastram, there are long discussions on whether Ajnanam, ignorance, is absence of knowledge or is it a positive entity? What would you think is the answer? Is Ajnanam Jnana Abhavaha, absence of knowledge? Is that the correct statement? And if you say no, you must tell us why. If you say yes, you must tell us why. Anybody wants to attempt? Come on, guys. It's an interesting exercise. Ignorance, is it absence of knowledge, which is the normal thing we say, right? Or is it something more? Anybody? Somebody can attempt, right?
May I try, Raviji?
हाँ विनीता जी बोलिए.
So, if we take the Rajju Sarpa example, the rope, the snake is the ignorance, but it is not it is mithya. So, we won't take ignorance as absence of knowledge. And so, I would say that ignorance is not absence of knowledge. Knowledge is there. I'm not able to expand on it further, but
Okay, you're going in the right direction, but it could be, made more specific. Anybody else wants to try? Vinita ji has got the right idea. How would somebody want to,
and
you know?
snake is mithya. It is a pratibhasika
Yeah, that is fair.
reality.
That is fair enough. Okay. Anybody else? It's a very important question.
It is nothing to be known, actually. So ignorance is not absence of knowledge because there is no knowledge involved. Because it is already there. I am Brahman. So
Agree. You are also saying the same thing that Vinita is saying, that ignorance is not absolute knowledge. Why? What is the reason for saying that? Is the question. It's a very important reason. Okay.
There is an error of understanding also.
You guys have all got all the individual components right, but you are not connecting them. What is Asatkaryavada say? That's a big hint.
whatever does not exist cannot be negated.
No. Asatkaryavada says that when there is a non-existent karanam, it cannot generate any product, existent or non-existent. That is Asatkaryavada. Apply that here.
The
If you,
non-existent
yeah,
snake,
go ahead. Yes.
the non-existent snake cannot be generating any knowledge or any. It is mithya.
No, no. Okay, let me. If knowledge is, if ignorance is absence of knowledge, it means it is something which is not there, right? When you say ajnanam is jnana abhava, you are talking about something which is not there. That is asat. Now, this ignorance of the rope, for example, it is, if you say it is the absence of the knowledge of the rope, the important word is absence. If you say that ignorance or rope ignorance is to be defined as absence of knowledge of rope. So you are saying that rope ignorance is a non-existent knowledge, right? Something which is non-existent is called rope ignorance. That non-existent karanam, because rope ignorance is the karanam for the snake, that non-existent karanam will not be able to generate a product at all. It doesn't matter whether it is a real product or a mithya product. Do you get the argument? And therefore, you cannot say that ajnanam is the absence of knowledge. Ajnanam cannot be called jnana abhava, because if ajnanam is jnana abhava, there is no question of it generating anything like samsara. If atma ajnanam is absence of knowledge of the atma, that non-existent cause, how can it generate an existent samsara? Even if it is mithya, it cannot generate a mithya samsara also. So that is the argument. And therefore, and remember the huge discussions on the subject in Vedanta. I'll say someday we will look at that. And therefore, we say that in Vedanta we say that ajnanam is not non-existence of jnanam. So in Sanskrit, ajnanam is not jnana abhava, but it is jnana virodha. Ajnanam is that which opposes jnanam. It cannot be called non-existence of jnana. It's a very important idea. So that you remember. With this, we'll wind up the 11th Karika and we'll talk about the 12th Karika. We will chant. So please unmute yourself. Karika number 12. Natmanam na paramshaiva
न आत्मानं
नात्मानं
न
न
परं
परंश्चैव
na satyam napi chanrutam
न
न सत्यं
सत्यं
नापि
नापि
चामृतम्
चामृतम्
prajna kinchana samvetti
Prajna
Prajnakinchana
Kinchana
Sarvati.
Samviti.
Turyam tat sarvadrik sada.
Suryam
Suryam
Tat Sarvadrik
Tatsarvadriksada.
Sada.
So now we are going to see the uncommon features of the third and the fourth pada, Prajna and Turyam, right? The differences between them. So Prajnaha Kinchana Samveti. Samveti knows. Kinchana Samveti knows nothing. Prajna does not know anything as complete ignorance. But we have to add from the previous karika, but there is no error. Because the mind is resolved, Prajna is completely ignorant of everything, but in the absence of the mind, there is no error. Right? And then the Karika goes on to say what all other things that he does not know. When you say does not know anything, what is covered by that word anything? So Natmanam na samveti. He does not know himself. Atmanam na samveti. He does not know himself. Na param cha eva. Nor any other objects. Right? So he does not know that he is there. His mind is not there. And therefore, na param chaiva. He does not know any other objects of the world also. Na satyam. Napi chanratam. So there is Atma Ajnanam as well as Anatma Ajnanam. He does not know himself. That is what is meant by Natmanam na samveti. And na param chaiva, he does not know any other objects. Any other objects means what? Anatma. So he consolidates that here. Na satyam napi charvatam. Satyam means himself. Turyam, Atma. He does not know. Na satyam. Na api cha anrutam. Anrutam is unreal. So here it refers to anatma. So na satyam napi cha anrutam is a consolidation of the earlier line. So there is total ignorance of Atma as well as total ignorance of Anatma. So there is total ignorance because there are only two things to know, right? And therefore, Turyam Tat Sarva Drik Sada. The pure consciousness, Turyam, Sarva Drik Sada, is the illuminator of everything always. Sarvadrik, the witness of everything, the illuminator of everything, Sada at all times. So again, you have to add over here. This includes ignorance, it includes error, it includes anatma, it includes his status as atma at that point of time. In pure consciousness, which is present during the sushupti avastha, you are not aware that you are the atma either. Okay, now there is a question. When we say, supposing I ask you, let's say, so let's make it a real question. Let us choose somebody. Ambarish, okay? Ambarish is an old friend. So Ambarish, do you know Chinese? Ambarish, can you answer the question?
Sorry, you are asking me?
I'm asking you, do you know Chinese?
No, I don't.
Then my question to you is, how do you know that you don't know Chinese? That's a very, you know, intricate question. How do you know that you know Chinese? You can only have one answer. What is that? I know, right?
Uh,
I know that I don't know Chinese.
hmm.
Now, so what does that indicate? It indicates that the Atma, the consciousness principle, also reveals ignorance. So that's a very interesting point. A question which you ask, saying that do you know that you don't know something, that actually reveals what? That you are conscious of your ignorance also. And that is what is said here. That you are
Yes.
consciousness of ignorance also. Turium is the illuminator of ignorance as well as of the error. Therefore, it is Sarvadrik, the witness of everything. right? And sada means at all times. It is not just when you're awake or asleep, all times it is the witness of everything. It is just that we don't know because the mind is resolved during Sushupti. And this is unlike Vishwa and Tajasa, how Vishwa and Tajasa know themselves and know the others. Okay, now Shankara says here that though the normal meaning of Sarvadrik is the witness of everything, Shankara says there's a better meaning. And that he writes, Tat Drik cha iti. Tat Drik cha iti. Which means that Drik, which is Tat, that Chaitanyam, which is that Sarvadrik is that Chaitanyam, which is everything. Right? Which means what? There is nothing else than that Chaitanyam. Even Ajnanam and the error, the Adhyasa, they are present in the Chaitanyam. They are not a separate entity. Why? Because Drik is, that Chaitanyam Drik is Satyam, while Ajnanam and Adhyasa are Mithya. Therefore, they cannot be separate from Turyam because they are dependent upon Turyam. And that is why thurium can never be contaminated with ignorance, because you cannot say that the gold is contaminated by the bangle, right? The product can never contaminate the cause. I cannot say this bangle is contaminating the gold, right? Therefore, you cannot say that ignorance, which is a product of thurium, or which is a adhyasa on thurium, it is contaminating the thorium. Ignorance is adhyasa. Adhyasa cannot contaminate the adhisthana. The superimposed entity can never contaminate the substrate. And therefore, since ajnanam is not separate from thorium, you cannot say that in thorium there is ajnanam. In thorium there is no ajnanam at all. Now you will say, this is not a contradiction, because ajnanam in thorium, and then how can you say that, you know, Ajnanam is superimposed upon thorium. And then how can you say that in thorium there is no Ajnanam? Is it not a contradiction? What is the answer? It's very clear, the answer. By now you should all know.
Mithya entity, the superimposed object is a mithya entity.
One
So
is Paramarthika, one is Vyavaharika. Thorium is Paramarthika, Ajnanam is Adhyasa. Ajnanam and Adhyasa are both Vyavaharika. They are a lower order of reality. Therefore, their coexistence is not an issue. Like, remember that coexistence of error and ignorance with thurium is okay, because thurium reveals both, right? And that is why, but coexistence of jnanam and ajnanam is not possible. Why? Because jnanam and ajnanam are both vyavaharika. The same reason that light and darkness cannot coexist, because both are of one order of reality. And in fact, in Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, which we are doing, of course, far away, in the third chapter, Shankara says, Nahi drishtuhu drishte viparilopo vidyate. The consciousness principle, Turiam, can never be concealed by Ajnana. Okay. So we will know. So please, if you don't understand something, please ask immediately, because as the flow goes on, you'll find it difficult if you have not followed something.
So, Om sir, so
Yeah.
I also don't know what I don't know.
You can never make that statement.
Really? Okay. But there's so many things I know that I don't know.
No, you don't. You know that you don't know everything, but you don't know a particular thing you don't know. See, you can always make only one statement. I don't know this, X, Y, Z.
Right.
The statement that I don't know what I don't know, That really has no meaning because you there are two negatives in that.
But because maybe in Chinese there is further languages diversions which I don't
Fine,
know.
that is okay. But then once you get to know that the divisions, then you'll know that you don't know. Right now, it's only a generalization that there are many things which I will not know. But you don't know something until you actually specify what it is.
So, Acharya ji, it is like Sushupti Avastha, almost. I mean, the statement by, I think, Pooja ji,
In Sushupti Avastha, mein you don't know
that I
anything.
don't know what I don't know is because in Sushupti Avastha, you don't know
You don't know
what you
anything.
don't know.
Sushupti Avastha, your mind is resolved. You cannot make that statement, I don't know, in Sushupti Avastha. Is it not? The statement that I don't know can be made only when you wake up.
True, true.
True.
So those small little, things we need to keep track of. Then Karika number 13, we will chant. द्वैतस्याग्रहणं तुल्यम्
Dvaitasya tulyam
तुल्यम्
उभयोः प्राज्ञतूर्ययोः
ubhayo
उभयोः
prajnatulyayoः
बीजनिद्रायुतः प्राज्ञः
बीजनिद्रायतः प्राज्ञः
प्राज्ञः
सा च तूर्येण विद्यते.
सा च
सा
तूर्येण
चतुर्येण
विद्यते
विद्यते.
Okay. Again, there is a comparison, but here there is a inclusion of the similarity also in addition to the difference. What is the difference between prajna and turiam? Prajna associated with ignorance, whereas turiam is not associated with ignorance. So prajnaha bija nidra yutaf prajnaha. Right? So prajnaha is associated with bija and nidra. Right? Both are terms for ignorance. And sacha, that sacha, that, which that, this bija and nidra, this ignorance, turyena vidyate, is not found in turyam. Therefore, turyam is free of ignorance. That is the difference. What then is the similarity? Ubhayoho in both prajna and turyaha. So, ubhayoho meaning prajna, turyayoho. It's an expansion. Ubhayoho, both. Both means what? Prajna and turyam. Dvaitasya agrahanam tulyam. Tulyam is they equally have dvaitasya agrahanam. Freedom from the perception of duality. Agranam means not holding on to. So free from perceiving dvaitasya, duality. Therefore, the sleeper, the prajna, does not have the error that he is a finite, limited jivatma. That is not there in Turyam also. Right? Why is Dvaitam called the error? Because the Advaitam is the fact. And here I can ask a very nice question, which in one of those commentaries I have said. When you say Advaitam, what do you actually mean? You use the word Dvaitam to define Advaitam and tell me, how do we define Advaitam by using Dvaitam?
Dvaitam means two, and Advaitam means not two.
So put it in Hindi or Sanskrit. Are you saying that Advaitam means Dvaitam Abhava?
There is no other. I would like to put it like that there is only one, there is no other. So there is no question of another.
Anybody else? Would like to try?
So, Acharyaji, I think when we say Advaitam, it is only Paramarthika Satyam, and Dvaitam is definitely transactional, Vyavharika.
Yes. But then, what does the of Advaitam stand for? That is the question. Advaitam is plus Dvaitam. Advaitam. What does the stand for? Abhava?
Without a second. Without a second.
But then if you say will stand for Abhava, then the whole, how do you, explain the fact that we are all in Dvaitam? The teaching is in Dvaitam, the teacher is in Dvaitam, the student is in Dvaitam, the understanding is in Dvaitam, your laptop is in Dvaitam. What is a better, attribution to the alphabet A?
All inclusive.
Very good, but you know, define that A.
Not different from.
No, has to be taken as Adhishthanam. So if you take Advaitam as the Adhishthanam Advaitam, then there is no contradiction at all. Not my brain, okay? Shankara says it somewhere. Very beautiful explanation. That do not take Advaitam as Dvaita Abhava. Take Advaitam as the Adhishthanam of Dvaitam, as the very substratum in which Dvaitam exists. Okay. We go to Karika number 14. We'll chant. Swapna Nidrayuta Vadhyau
स्वप्ननिद्रायुतावाद्यौ
Prajñastvo Swapna Nidraya
प्राज्ञस्वस्वप्ननिद्रया
Nanidram Naivacha Swapnam
न निद्रां नैव च स्वप्नम्
Turye Pashyanti Nishchitaha.
दूर्ये पश्यन्ति निश्चिताः.
Okay, if you remember the earlier Karikas, this Karika is very similar to Karika 11. The four padas are being compared, right? So, Adho, the first two padas, Swapna, Nidra, Yuta. Yutaha is the association. So, Swapna, Nidra, that is namely Vishwa and Tajasa, were connected to Swapna and Nidra. How Vishwa is associated with ignorance and error, Taijasa is associated with ignorance and error, but Pragnaha to Aswapna Nidraya. So that's the breakup. Pragnaha to Aswapna Nidraya is associated with error-free ignorance, which is ignorance without the product. Pure cause only, the karanam only, the karyam is not there. Therefore, prajna to aswapna nidraya is associated with only pure ignorance, and turye in turyam na nidram naiva cha swapnam. There is neither nidra, the ignorance, nor swapna, the error. And this is said by whom? Pashyanti nischitaha. Nischitaha, people who are wise, who have firm ideas. The wise people do not see. Pashyanti, in Turiam, they don't see ignorance or the error. Thus, number one, Vishwa and Taijasa are ignorance and error sahitaha, are together with ignorance and error. Pragnya is only ignorance and Turiam is free of both. So So this is the thing which we have to remember. Vishwa Tajasa, both associated with ignorance and error, both. Prajna associated only with ignorance. Thuriam associated with neither ignorance nor error. And therefore, if one has to have moksha, one should be free of both the ignorance and the error. And therefore, Vishwa and Tajasa or Prajna can never be free of both. Even Prajna, at least ignorance is there. Only Turiam is free of both. Therefore, if moksha is desired, one has to claim yourself as Turiam Brahman. Okay. Now the 15th Karika. We chant. Anyata घृण्णतः स्वप्नः
अन्यथा
अन्यथा गृह्णतः स्वप्नः
निद्रा त्वत्त्वमजानतः
निद्रात्वमजानतः
विपर्यासे तयोः क्षीणे
विपर्यासयोः क्षिणे
तूर्यं पदमश्नुते.
सूर्यं पदमश्नुते.
So this is the concluding karika on the comparisons, and he gives the important corollary also. First, he reinforces the same idea by using different words. So he says swapna anyatha granataha. Swapna belongs to that pada which is anyata granataha, which is associated with wrong perception. Wrong perception is error. So wherever error is there, that is called swapna. And what is this error? It's simple. I am Jivatma is the error. What is the cause? The ignorance that I am the Paramatma. So when the fact that I am Paramatma is not known, then the idea, the erroneous perception that I am Jivatma is there, and that is called a dream. So Vedanta says as long as this confusion is there, a person will be in dream. So as long as you think that you are a Jivatma, Shastra says even your Jagrata Avastha is nothing but Swapna, because confusion is present. And because of this Swapna, the error, belongs to both the first two padas, both the padas, first and second. The waker and the dreamer, both are associated with ignorance. Right? On the other hand, Nidra Tattvama Janataha, Sushupti Ajnanam, belongs to that pada, prajna, where Tattvam Ajanataha, which is associated with ignorance of the real state, associated with Tattvam here can be taken as self or Atma. So Tattvam is also, Tattvam Ajanataha is association with self-ignorance. Therefore, even in the waking state, in Jagrata Avastha, since there is Atma Ajnanam present, in the Vedantic sense, you are asleep. Right? So in Jagrata Avastha, unless you have Atma Jnanam, Shastram says you are actually sleeping. In Swapna also you are asleep. Right? And Sushupti also, there is self-ignorance. Therefore, all these three states, Jagrat, Swapna and Sushupti, you can say that you are in a state of sleep, Ajnana. What is the difference between the Jagrat, Swapna and Sushupti? In the first two, so idea being conveyed is in all three, there is Ajnana, sleep, right? But in the first two, Jagrat and Swapna, in addition to Ajnanam, there is the self-delusion, that product also, that karyam also. Whereas in Sushupti Avastha, there is only Ajnanam, self-ignorance, but the delusion, the karyam, the product, the error is not there. So in Turyam, there is neither ignorance nor the error, the delusion. And the only way you can get moksha is to claim yourself as Turiya. Right? Therefore, the corollary is given. Viparyase tayoho kshine Turyam padam ashnute. When tayoho, both, the viparyaya is the delusion, the flaw, right? When both the flaws, tayoho viparyaha, when both the flaws, which are what? Self-ignorance and the error are eliminated. Kshine. So viparyase tayoho kshine, when both self-ignorance and the product, the delusion are eliminated, then, but here remember viparyaya is ajnanam and adhyasa. When both are eliminated, and remember that in all the three padas, they are present. So here he is saying viparyasaha in a very peculiar sense. In the first two padas, in this particular sentence, in the first two padas, which is what? The first waker and the sleeper, swapna. The word viparyasa should be taken as referring to adhyasa. Right? However, in the third pada, there is no adhyasa. So the word viparyasa has to be taken as referring to ajnana. So when studying this particular sentence, it says viparyase tayoho kshine. Right? So it looks as if we are talking about only the first two pada. We are not. We are talking about all the three padas. But the viparyasa pada word has to be used differently, has to be understood differently for the first two padas and the third pada. Right? For obvious reasons. So in viparya can be taken as mithya padarthaha. Right? Ajnanam and adhyasa. And therefore in the first two padas, there is adhyasa. The error is there. Therefore, the first two padas, viparyasaha refers to adhyasa. In the third pada, in prajna, there is no error. And therefore, the word viparyasa has to be taken as referring to the cause, the karanam, the ajnana. And when you get rid of all these three, all these two rather, but in all the three states, then turyam padam ashnute, you will attain the status of turyam. Because if, as long as you are associated with ignorance and error, you are either Prathama Pada, that is Vishwa, or Dvitiya Pada, which is Taijasa. Or if you don't have the error, but only the ignorance, then you are Tritiya Pada, Prajna. As long as these errors are there, you are either Prathama Pada, or Dvitiya Pada, or Tritiya Pada, all three are Mithya. And therefore, the possibility of moksha is not there. Only when you get rid of ignorance and error, both, and claim yourself as that Turiam in which neither of them are present, then only that is called the state of moksha. And how is ignorance removed and error removed? Ignorance removed simply by gaining knowledge of Turiam. And error need not be removed separately. Right? When you know that the rope snake is actually a rope, you don't separately need to remove the snake. The very knowledge that it is a rope, it removes the product, the snake. So the very knowledge that you are Brahman will remove the product, which is samsara. Therefore, all we have to do is to gain knowledge about Turiya. What is the answer? How do we gain knowledge about Turiya? We all know. There's a long process. Karma Yoga, Chitta Shuddhi, Jnana Yogata, Upasana, Chitta Ekagrata, then Shravanam, Maranam, Nidhyasanam. This is the long process. Okay. Any questions so far? So one part of the explanations are over.
So, Acharyaji, when we say that there is no error in prajna, it is only because the mind is completely resolved.
Yes, because the mind is resolved, there is no question of projecting anything. Okay, because it's the mind which projects. Now we go to the next karika, which is number 16. So we will chant. Anadi Maya Suptaha
Maya
Anadimaya
Suktah
suktah
Yada Jivah Prabhudyate
yada
Yada Jiva
prabhusyate
Prabhusyate
Ajam Nidrama Swapnam
Ajanidram
ajanidram
Swapnam
Advaitam Buddhyate Tada.
Advaitam
advaitam
Buddhyate
buddhyate
Tada
tada.
So, Anadi Maya. Ajnanam and Adhyasa both are Anadi. Both have no beginning at all. And Yada Jiva Prabodhyate, when the Jivatma wakes up to what? To his real nature, which is what? Jnanam. Through Jnanam, he recognizes that he is Turiam. So, Buddhyate Tada. At the time when he recognizes that he is Turiam, after having done Shravanam, Mananam, and Nididhyasanam, what happens? What type of Turiam is he? Ajam, Anidram, Aswapnam, Advaitam. Right? Anidram. He is without the Karana Shariram. He has no Sushupti Avastha. Therefore, he has no ignorance. This is a description of Turiam, right? Buddhyate Tada. He is Turiam. So, Anidram is without Karma Shariram, without ignorance. Ajam, beginningless, right? Without Sthula Shariram. Why? Because Janma associated with Sthula Shariram. Therefore, Ajam, when you say, you have to say that this is without the physical body. Then Aswapnam, without dream, without Adhyasa. Which Shariram is left? Sukshma Shariram is left. And it is in the Sukshma Shariram that you have Swapna. Therefore, Aswapnam can be taken as without the Sukshma Shariram. So, without the three bodies is Anidram, Ajam, Aswapnam, and Advaitam. Without the three bodies, that Turiam has no divisions at all. And therefore, Vishva, Taijasa, Prajna, Vilakshanaha. Different from the three bodies, I am, iti buddhyate. When you recognize this fact, right? And Shankara gives a very nice explanation over here. He says, Yaha ayam samsari jivaha. This samsari jiva, saha suptaha. He is always sleeping. Why? Because he does not have the knowledge that he is Turiam. And that sleep, he says, has been there from beginningless time. Right? This samsari jiva is perpetually asleep, and that sleep has been anadi. It's beginningless time, and he says that sleep is called Maya. Right? And that Maya has two components. That is what? Ajnanam of the Tattvam. The fact that I am Turiam, I do not know. That is Ajnanam. And that is a seed. The Ajnanam seed. From that Ajnanam seed, what happens? Adhyasa arises. Misconceptions arise. And in his commentary, he gives some of the misconceptions. So he says, Mama ayam pita. The first misconception is, this is my father. Then ayam putraha. This is my son. Then nappa kshetram pasavaha. This is my great grandson. This is my land. This is my cattle. And aham esham swami. I am the owner of all these things. Then aham sukhi, aham dukhi. I am happy, I am sad. And because of this and that, I have become poorer. And because of this and that, I have become richer. He says all these are nothing but dreams. So when, in short, he says that whenever Vishwa and Tajasa are in operation, Jagrat and Swapna Avasthas, it is all a dream only. What is the difference? Vishwa, the Jagrat Avastha, is a long dream for the extent of your life. While Swapna Avastha, that is Tajasa, is a short dream for the night only. Then what happens? Shankara continues. He has some good prarabdha in his earlier life. And because of that good prarabdha, he wanders somewhere. He meets a guru. And that guru tells him, Tvam evam na asi. You are not what you think you are. And he explains, what do you think you are? He says, you think you are the cause of karma phalam, which means you are karta bhokta, you think. But that is not true. You are actually tattvamasi, you are that Atman. And prabudhyate, in this manner he understands. Beautiful explanation for that particular verse. So very clearly says that jnanam is from beginningless time, and but that jnanam can go only through the grace of a teacher. Once the teacher is there and you have understood, then you know that you are Turyam. That is prabudhyate. Waking up is that particular thing. Then one more we'll do. Harika number 17. Prapancho yadi vidyeta
Prapancho
प्रपञ्चो यदि
vidyeta
विविध्येत
nivarteta na samshayah
निवर्तेत
निवर्तेत
न
न
संशयः
संशयः
maya matramidam dvaitam
मायामात्रमिदं
मायामात्रमिदं
द्वैतं
द्वैतम्
advaitam paramathatah.
अद्वैतं
अद्वैतं
परमार्थतः
परमार्थतः
So this is an answer to a question from a student which is presupposed. What is the question? If jnanam is gained only through the uh, elimination of the prapancha, of the universe, then until prapancha is eliminated, how can you say there is Advaita? Right? Once prapancha is gone, then only I, Turyam remain. Right? Why? Because during duality, during the transactional world, I am the subject and the object world is there. Therefore, to gain that knowledge of Advaitam, the world has to be there because the guru has to be there, the teacher has to be there, Shastram has to be there, my body has to be there. Therefore, oh Guru, how can I gain Advaitam Jnanam without eliminating the world? Because the moment the world is gone, the process for Jnanam is also gone. Okay. So, what is the answer? When we say the world is eliminated, the world is gone, do we mean the world is gone or do we mean that the experience of the world is understood correctly? Right? Remember that the world will not go away, nor will the experience of the world go away. All you need to understand is that the experience is mithya, the world is mithya, and the mithya vastu cannot be counted as a second thing. And that is what is being said here. So he says, Prapancho yadi vidyata. If that world really existed, vidyata, if the world was satyam, really, nivarteta na samshaya, we can definitely say that we need to talk about the world going away. Nivartetaha na samshaya, without doubt, we have to talk about the world going away. But maya matram idam dvaitam. But this dvaita prapancha is really only a projection of maya. Right? So, what is being said? We should very carefully note that we should not say that Satyam cannot go away. Satyam doesn't go away. The idea being discussed here is that the going away of the world is not necessary, right? It's a very careful distinction. Normally we say, I am Satyam, world is Mithya, therefore world is, I don't go away, world goes away, right? But here the idea is different. He says that don't use the argument that you are Satyam and the world is Mithya and it will go away, right? He says it is not necessary to talk about the going away of the world. Because really speaking, the world is not there at all. Right? And Shankara says just like you really don't have to talk about the going away of the rope snake. Because the rope snake was not there. It is really not there at all. So if the rope snake was existing, then you can say yes, it will go away. But the rope snake is never there. Where is the question of it going away? Do you see the difference?
Yes, Acharya.
Jnanam does not remove the rope snake. Why? Because the rope snake was never there. Clear enough? Jnanam does not remove the rope snake because the rope snake was never there. Jnanam does just makes you understand that there never was a snake to be removed. So the Jagat similarly doesn't exist at all. And therefore, Jnanam doesn't remove the Jagat. There is no need of talking about the going away of the Jagat. You have to understand that there never was a Jagat really to be removed. Then what actually goes away in the wake of knowledge? It is the idea that there is a Dvaita Prapancha. The idea goes away. Dvaita Prapancha doesn't go away because it was never there in the first place. The snake doesn't go away. The rope snake doesn't go away. It was never there in the first place. But the idea that there is a rope snake, that goes away. Therefore, in Vedanta, the elimination of Dvaitam is to be equated to the elimination of the delusion that there is Dvaitam. And what remains? Advaitam Paramarthataha. There is only Advaitam. There never was any Dvaitam at all. There was only delusion that there is Dvaitam. So what should you do? You should eliminate that Dvaita delusion, the Dvaita Brahma, through proper jnana. Right? For example, there is an example. Supposing you are dreaming and you see a thief entering the house in your dream, right? And then you wake up and then you shout, thief, thief, thief. Will that dream thief go away? No. There was no real thief at all. The dream thief went away when you woke up. There was no need to make that thief go away. So with this, we'll stop for today. Any questions? Okay. And presume that there are no questions and you've understood everything. And if you are not, please ask. Yes, Dr. Raji, saying something?
Yes, please, Raviji. I just feel like there's a little bit of a contradiction between this and what we said earlier, that we cannot know something that does not exist. And so we know this Vyavaharika life, so there is some knowledge or something existing. Now we're saying it never had an existence. So how could we ever know something that never exists? Do you understand my doubt?
Yes. So that is, when you say exist, it means as a reality, as Satyam. But it does exist as Mithya.
Right.
So here it is, the Mithya existence is taken as not really existing.
It's another level of reality.
Another level of reality. It is like getting up and saying, I know that the tiger was not chasing me in the dream. But it was chasing you in the dream. But you know now that it was never chasing you because it was not there. That is the understanding.
Right. Okay, thank you.
ॐ पूर्णमदः पूर्णमिदं पूर्णात् पूर्णमुदच्यते पूर्णस्य पूर्णमादाय पूर्णमेवावशिष्यते ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः Om Tat Sat, Om Namah Shivaya. Thank you for your patience. Om Om Om.
Thank you, Raviji.